You see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean...
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles. And you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on SiriusXM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the resistance. Tuesday, January 8th. We're live the next 3 hours. I'm Dean Obeidallah. On Twitter, at Dean Obeidallah. Hope you'll check out the live streaming now, Facebook.com/Dean of Radio. You can put comments. I'll try to get back to you during the break at Dean of Radio, or in the third hour, Danny Savalas from MSNBC will be in studio and we'll stream the whole thing. But we are now on countdown to Donald Trump's Wall of Lies, which will begin at 9 p.m. We're not going to cover it live. Look, if I wanted to see Trump's lies, I don't have to watch an interview. I don't have to watch him give a speech. I can go to his Twitter feed. He lies every day. Well, I don't need to watch it in actual him reading tweets out loud. That's what the speech will be. It's going to be an 8-minute speech. That's it. Nothing. Just lie, 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 lie. And speaking of lies, Stephen Colbert was back last night. First night back since the break, since December, using comedy effectively to call out Donald Trump's lies. And to me, this is the highest form of comedy. This is comedy that makes you laugh and makes you smarter and challenges those in power. He's speaking truth to power through comedy and reminding the audience what a liar Donald Trump is. Here's first Colbert destroying Donald Trump's lie that past presidents have all said to him they want a wall too. Here's clip number 1.
Trump defended the shutdown, saying everyone has known for a long time that we needed a wall.
This should have been done by all of the presidents that preceded me, and they all know it. Some of them have told me that we should have done it.
No, they haven't. Because we checked. Of the 4 living ex-presidents, Obama, George W. Bush, and Clinton all denied it. Even Jimmy Carter said, I have not discussed the border wall with President Trump and do not support him on the issue. So, even Carter.
Man, come on now.
Even Jimmy Carter doesn't want a wall, and Jimmy Carter builds walls.
And they showed a clip of him doing Habitat for Humanity, who's actually building a wall. So that's where you've got great comedy. You have Colbert doing a better job fact-checking Trump than many of the Fox News people. I can't say all, because Chris Wallace was great on Sunday. And then here is Colbert calling out Trump's lie that Obama built a massive wall around his house, which is an absolute lie, by the way. And I don't know if the media did a good job destroying it, but here, clip number 2.
Trump is convinced. He's convinced the Democrats are pro-wall.
President Obama recently built a wall around his compound. There's a reason for it, and I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. And I don't have to, because there is no such wall. Okay, there may not be walls around Obama's house, but his house does have walls. If Obama were not such a hypocrite, he'd be living in a gazebo.
Gazebo. By the way, there are numerous articles. I shared one earlier on Twitter because it was brought up yesterday that Donald Trump that Obama had a wall around his house. He did not. And Obama's home, 100% visible from the street. As neighbors point out, there's no 10-foot wall in the front or the back or the side. That's it. ABL, Donald Trump always be lying. Always be lying. We should not fact check Trump. We should assume everything's a lie. And then he has the burden to show us it's true. So anything he says, it's a lie. That's it. He just speaks just like a rambling person on the subway here in New York, just screams things out, and I assume it's lies. And every now and then, even the person who's challenged on the subway yelling things out could get things right. That's where Trump is. And here on the White House lawn a short time ago, Kellyanne Conway was out there with reporters, and Jim Acosta from CNN asks her point blank, will Donald Trump lie tonight in his speech? She got very upset by that. Here is clip number 3.
And can you promise that the president will tell the truth tonight? Will he tell the truth?
Yes, Jim, and can you promise that you will?
I will.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth to help you, God?
I'm not the
Am
one
I
who
allowed
has
to
the
mention God to
alternative facts
you?
problem like you do.
No, well, that, Jim, I know that's what you make sure that goes viral.
Okay.
This is why, by the way, this is why I'm one of the only people around here who even gives you the time of day.
Can you guarantee?
And let me get back in your face, because you're such a smart ass most of the time, and I know you want this to go viral. A lot of these people don't like you.
Wow, a lot of these people don't like you. When she meant a lot of people, she meant her. She does not like him, nor does Trump. She did not, it's funny, when you listen to Jim Acosta, he did not say, will Trump lie today, like every day in the address. I would have probably asked it like that. He was actually nicer. Will Donald Trump tell the truth today? And she got all upset. The answer is no, he won't. Because he doesn't. He doesn't. He just lies. In fact, tonight, he's giving an 8-minute address, but he'd probably break the record for the most lies in 8 minutes. It should come with a warning tonight that tonight's address could make you dumber. And then they're going to have an address, national TV, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi. I can just envision, like, Trump lies for 8 minutes and they cut to those two and their mouths are just open going, I can't believe he just said that. I can't believe he just lied the whole time. We didn't even know what to say. I'm hoping Chuck and Nancy go right at him. I hope they go at him and lay down the case really quickly. Boom, boom, boom. How people get here, how drugs don't really come over the border and where the fencing is, how Democrats are for border security, and it's about an allocation of resources. As Lisa pointed out yesterday, she called in, make the case to our fellow Americans, do you want a wall or do you want Medicare funded? And I went back and looked at the proposed budget of Donald Trump. Did you know his proposed budget for 2019 is to cut over $50 billion from Medicare? So it's not even a fear-mongering. It wants to cut $500 billion over the next 10 years. Why not use the $25 billion for your wall to fund Medicare so people like my mom can have the benefits that she deserves? How about that? And I think we've got to make that stark choice for people. So tonight, we're not exactly sure what Trump will say. We heard last night rumors he was going to declare a national emergency. As of right now, CNN's reporting there's no final word on whether he'll declare a national emergency or not. I'm not sure if he will or not, but I think it's important because I'm very confident that in the next 2 years, Donald Trump will invoke the idea of a national emergency because Democrats will give him nothing that he wants. And he just cares about his base. And he'll let it be litigated in the court system, and he can tell his supporters, I fought for you the way I promised. So I want to go through a little bit about the law that when Danny Savalas comes in, we'll talk about it a little bit more. He just wrote a great article today, Danny, for NBC. And look, there are broad powers for a president to invoke national emergency powers. It used to be uncodified. It was not in statutory form. It was just all over the place. Well, in 1976, Congress, after Nixon, tried to rein it in a little bit by putting it in a codified, institutionalized way. It's actually scary now when you read it because I don't think they ever thought someone like a Donald Trump would ever be president. But I'll tell you a little bit about it, not trying to get too wonky here, but I think you should know about the National Emergencies Act. And it's right up there with everything else we've learned about the law during Donald Trump. He's made us all smarter on the law. We've all learned about this thing called the Emoluments Clause. Who talked about that before? We've all learned about, can you indict a sitting U.S. president? We've had numerous discussions on that. We've all debated, can a president pardon himself? Again, something you never thought you'd have to discuss, but with Trump you do. And now a new thing, the National Emergency Act. Now, according to the Congressional Research Service, which does research on statutes when requested by members of Congress, it says very clearly in interpreting this act, the President of the United States, and I'm quoting, has available certain powers that may be exercised in the event that nation is threatened by crisis, exigency, or emergency circumstances other than natural disasters, war, or near war situations. So you might ask, is it hard for a president under this law to say there's an emergency? The short answer, no. That's the worst part of it. It's not defined what an emergency is in this law. Literally, there's nothing preventing Donald Trump tonight from declaring an emergency. I have to be honest about that. There are certain things in this statute he must comply with in terms of notice and citing statutes for what he's doing. But I must tell you, there's no legal impediment to stop him from declaring an emergency. It does not mean he gets all his funding for his wall. That's step two. So let's stay with this first part here. The idea of the National Emergencies Act was transparency. So it gives the president broad powers to cite any statute to accomplish his goals. Here's the scary part. And here is sort of like a summary of what a president can do based on our federal statutes under this law legally. I'm not kidding. It sounds like something out of the Soviet Union or a czar in a third world country. The president, under the powers delegated by this statute, may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a variety of ways control the lives of United States citizens. Can you believe this is a federal law? Can you believe a president? It's not saying in that statute they have all this power. It's saying they have power under the statute. He can cite, and I'll get into it in a second. Under our existing statutes, these are the powers he could cite and have legally. Then it would go to court to be resolved if the president's gone too far or not. The only restriction is the president has to declare specifically the powers and authorities being activated to respond to the emergency at hand. So just to lay out to say specifically, I declare a national emergency in accordance with this act and identify the statutory basis for anything he wants to do. That's all he's got to do. That's it. The only remedy in the statute is Congress can pass a joint resolution, a majority of the House and the Senate, saying what you're doing is wrong and we want it stopped. Here's the problem. Trump's got to sign that. If he doesn't sign it, then they have to override his veto to stop him from doing anything. So forget just the wall, folks. I don't care if you're a Trump supporter. If a Democratic president were to do these things, we'd all be frightened. Imagine Obama said, I'm going to fund Planned Parenthood, or I'm going to fund abortions, even though there's a Hyde Amendment that says federal government can't fund abortions. Well, I'm going to fund abortions. I'm declaring an emergency for women's health. People on the right would go crazy. In fact, they used to go crazy, calling Obama a dictator and a tyrant. They are silent now on the precipice of Donald Trump doing a massive power grab. Now, the real question is not can Trump declare an emergency? He clearly can. There's no doubt. The question is, can he have the wall built legally and get funding for this wall by declaring an emergency? And that's where it gets murky. And it's very hard there because if he tries to use the defense budget money that's not spent, the defense budget, the statute's very clear. It can only be used on military construction projects and those necessary to support the use of armed forces. So he could argue tonight, hey, we've got our military down there and this is a crisis. We have an invasion force that's building at any moment. We need our military and I'm going to use that money. Kind of scary. That's the argument he can make. You talk about drugs. It's a threat to national security. I got to send the military down there. We're going to use military budget to build this wall. Now, here is Senator Kamala Harris this morning talking to George Stephanopoulos about the whole idea of an emergency or not. And we hear clip number 4, please.
Vice President's basic point, Democrats are ignoring a crisis and says the president really is considering declaring a national emergency to go around Congress. Your response?
It's just not true. It's just simply not true. There was a bipartisan effort out of the United States Senate and the United States Congress to pass a funding of the government, and the president is holding it up because of his vanity project, which is this wall, at taxpayers' expense and at the expense of hundreds of thousands of workers who are working every day without being paid. So it's just simply not true. It's an emergency of his own creating.
It is an emergency of his own creation. It's not a national emergency. It's a political emergency for Donald Trump's base, which is fearful. They have white fragility and white anxiety over changing demographics. And this wall is a monument to keeping America white. That's what it's about. Because if it was about border security, we'd have a reasonable discussion about border security. But we're not having that. We're having Trump go wall or shut down. That's it. And then Senator Harris was asked, what will you do if Donald Trump declares an emergency and tries to say we're sending the military to build a wall? And just to be clear, Trump can declare an emergency. There's no doubt about it. The question is, what will his powers be after that declaration that are legal or not? And here's Senator Harris, clip number 5, continuing on.
But if he declares this national emergency, is there anything you can do to stop him?
Well, I think that there's no question that we will litigate and there will be litigation. These are moments in our country where the beauty of the design of our democracy is being tested. And if you think about our democracy or the republic as being a tabletop standing on 4 legs, there are 3 independent co-equal branches of government and a free and independent press. And so what is happening over and over again in the last 2 years is those other branches of government and the courts and the press will put the checks and balances on the outrageous conduct of this administration. If he declares an emergency, I think that we will see, again, the checks and balances kick in, and particularly through the court.
So she's relying on the courts. Now, the question, of course, is who has legal standing to bring this lawsuit? I mean, I couldn't. I would not have legal standing. The House Democrats likely would. I was reading some lawyers writing articles today talking about others who could have legal standing would be the landowners, because Donald Trump would be grabbing land from countless Americans on the border, without congressional approval, taking their land. It's remarkable those on the right not upset about a massive land grab of private citizens' land. They would be compensated, of course. And here is Judge Napolitano today saying something that sounds good, but I'm going to warn you afterwards why you cannot rely on this. Here's clip number 6.
He will declare a national emergency to build that wall. Can he do that?
In a word, no. No, that's not me saying no, because the Supreme Court said no when Harry Truman attempted to do that. When there was a steel strike during the Korean War, he asked the Congress to authorize him to seize the steel mills and operate them against the strikers' wishes and produce steel for our troops who desperately needed it in the Korean War. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. Congress can do it. Congress can pay for the steel mills and operate them, but the president can't do it on his own. Stated differently, the Supreme Court has made it very clear. Even in times of emergency, the President of the United States of America cannot spend money unless it's been authorized by the Congress.
Sounds great. Here's the real world. Every single legal expert said that the case before the federal judge in Texas before the holidays on the ACA, whether it was constitutional or unconstitutional, was going to find it to be constitutional because Supreme Court already had. Every single expert, even on the right, said it's going to be held constitutional, no big deal. And what happened? That judge, a Republican appointee, said it was unconstitutional. Now, the ruling is on hold. It's going to the appellate process, and everyone tells us, don't worry about the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. We'll overturn it. No, when things go to a judge, you don't know what will happen. We don't know how arguments are made by the lawyers. We don't know the evidence presented to that judge, even at district level, on this kind of argument. So you cannot count on that Trump cannot get the funding. There are bigger issues here at play. Beyond the wall, beyond declaring an emergency, just the idea of declaring an emergency. There was a great article in the Washington Post today by a person who writes a lot about how democracies die. And she wrote, totalitarianism rises out of a process, not a single event. Declaring a state of emergency in response to a political impasse would be a big step toward degrading an already vulnerable system. A fake emergency could trigger a real catastrophe, one that a split Congress would unlikely be unable to resolve, and that a Supreme Court sympathetic to an imperial presidency might even worsen. We have more than a century of precedents at home and abroad to demonstrate all the ways things could go wrong. And of course, on Twitter, numerous people pointed things out from what happened in other countries. Some cited, of course, Hitler and what went on there and others. The point of this author and the person who wrote How Democracies Die, there were two authors. One came on this show. You don't lose this system of government that we have overnight. It's little by little by little. It's eroded. And right now we have the threat of a president going to invoke emergency powers, and the Republicans in the Senate are silent. Hence, they are complicit. They're even complicit with his lies. And his base is silent. They're cheering him. Everyone on his base who is cheering Trump to declare a national emergency to undermine our Congress is actually cheering for a coup of our government. They don't want democracy. They want Trumpistan. And I thought once we got the House, there's no chance of a Trumpistan. And ultimately, I think that even if he declares an emergency, there will be litigation. I can't tell you how it's going to get resolved. But again, this is not a national emergency. This is a political emergency. And this is where we stand. So let me put it out there to you. We have a lot of time to chat in this hour. And top of the next hour, Ro Khanna, the congressman, will join us. I'd love to hear people's views on things we should be telling the Democrats, how to frame a defense and an argument. And he'll try to give, I'm hoping he'll give us a little insight into what Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are going to say tonight. But how should the Democrats rebut Trump's speech tonight? Should it be calling out his lies? Should it be making an assertive argument about what we stand for? Use those minutes to go, hey, we care about border security, but we care even more about Medicare and minimum wage and seniors getting health care that they need and lowering the number of Americans dying by drug overdose, which was over 70,000 in 2017, the last year we have the full numbers. Should they be doing it like that? Did you want someone other than Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi to be giving the rebuttal tonight? Because we could debate that all night. I'd love to hear your view. Right to the top of the hour, you're my guest, 866-997-4748. Be right back after this. At this point, the question is not who connected to Donald Trump as a criminal. The question is anyone connected to Donald Trump who's not a criminal?
The Dean Obeidallah Show, SiriusXM Progress.